Hi there, I'm Em. Welcome to the Professionals Recovery Room. Have you ever felt that persistent feeling of self-doubt and fear of being exposed as a fraud in your role? Despite the fact that you, on paper, have high performance and multiple successes under your belt and positive feedback from your leader, possibly maybe less positive feedback from your leader, but overall successes. If you've ever felt this way, it's called imposter syndrome. And you've probably heard quite a bit about this, especially in the past 10, 15 years. But it's still real and it's still happening to a lot of us, including myself at times. High achievers feel it, executives feel it, leaders experience it. It's a normal feeling. But the difference between success and holding yourself back is really how you deal with imposter syndrome. But before we get there, let's talk about the impact of imposter syndrome. Essentially, what it does is it drains your mental energy, at the same time possibly keeping you from speaking up, applying for promotions, or taking risks that are so necessary to grow your career. And it's really, really common. A 2019 study reviewing 62 studies across multiple populations found that up to 70% of people will experience imposter feelings at some point in their lives. And that's across genders, across industries, and across roles. And honestly, I feel like it's higher, but no study is perfect, right? That said, a study by Clance and Imes in 1978 first identified imposter phenomenon in high-achieving women, showing that many attributed to success to luck or external factors rather than their ability. And I see this in so many women and honestly people around me. They think it's just right time, right place, luck, all those things, and that may have a factor in certain things, but it doesn't take away from your talents and your abilities to be successful. Not everyone would be successful in your spot, even if they had luck or right time, right place. Think about that. And the last study I want to talk about, and I hope I don't butcher this, Virgue in 2015 showed that imposter tendencies are linked with burnout, lower job satisfaction, and reduced career engagement, showing real workplace consequences here. And you know how we talk about burnout. If you're constantly down on yourself, thinking you can't do something, you're training your brain to think in that way, to think that about you. So eventually that's going to happen and burn you out and put you in a really negative place. So we know what imposter syndrome is, and we know a little bit about its background, but there are some common triggers that actually, even when you're doing well, cause imposter syndrome to creep up. And that is first, obviously, being in a new role or new industry. And this one really resonates with me. And these are those times when I really have to check myself and remember, this is my ramp up period, right? I can't expect myself to be amazing the first month. You need time to be able to ramp up. You're not going to be the expert right out of the gate on a business that you haven't been in for a longer period of time. You have a learning curve, a change curve. So be kind to yourself when that's happening. But another common trigger is perfectionism. And that means holding yourself to unrealistically high standards, which I definitely tend to do, and so many people do. You know what? If you're holding yourself to perfection or you're holding yourself to these really high standards, you can't be creative. You can't just let things flow because you're constantly worried about it being perfect. So remember that also can trigger feelings of imposter syndrome. The next one is comparing yourself to your peers. Just don't do it. When you're comparing yourself to your peers, you're seeing the outside face value of what's going on with their job or their lives or whatever it is. It's kind of like watching those Instagram influencers and TikTokers and saying, oh, their lives are so perfect. They get to travel and all the things and their marriages are so perfect. But when you look behind the scenes, it's much different. The picture is much different. So don't compare yourself constantly to your peers because you don't really know what's going on. It may look good for face value. They may say a lot of the right things, but you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So don't do it. You are you. You are unique. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. And the last one really feeds on that thought. The last one is working in environments that emphasize competition over collaboration. If the business is encouraging you to compare yourself to your peers constantly, it's trying to drive you almost with fear to bring productivity. And as we've talked about in some of my prior episodes, that's not going to work. If you're bringing fear into the workplace to get people to do their jobs, it's going to lead to burnout. It's not going to be effective long term. So don't feed into that. Remove yourself from that cycle. And remember, don't compare yourself and don't feel like you're in competition with your peers. I like to say all the time, I compete with myself. I don't compete with my peers. And let me keep feeding on that to talk about some of the steps that you can use to overcome that feeling of just not being good enough, or that you think that you can't do it or as well as someone else. What you need to do first is start to reframe your thoughts. If you're in a period where you're feeling that imposter syndrome, you've probably been thinking it for a while, and you're training your brain to automatically default to feeling that way. So we need to start retraining the brain to think differently and reframe your thoughts to say, instead of like, I don't belong here, shift your thoughts to, I'm learning and I'm going to be contributing in my own way. I may not do things the same way as everyone else, but it's my way. Start there. And then start tracking all your wins. So any compliments you're getting, any positive feedback, some results or big wins, start writing them down and keep that list. And when you're feeling like you're behind or you're feeling like you're not getting anywhere, take that list out and remember all of the things that you've done and the value that you bring. Next, talk about it. I don't care if you're using Reddit. I don't care if you're talking to people just in the same field. It can be anyone who's experiencing the same things. It doesn't have to be people at your job, right? But talk about it. Let yourself feel supported and know that you're not alone. There's so many people. We even said over 70%, right? There's so many people feeling the way that you do at some point. And then focus on contribution, not comparison. So look at how you can add value. Start assessing your talents and see what you can bring to the table, right? Because you're unique. But don't compare that to anyone else. Every single person is different on what they offer. So you bring what your talents and your creativity can bring to the table. You bring value. Remember that. If you can just do one thing until we talk again in 2 weeks, do this. Ask yourself, what is one piece of evidence you have right now that proves you're more than capable than you give yourself credit for? Just think about what you have done that shows that you are successful, that you bring that value, and it proves that you're more capable than you give yourself credit for. And just remember, you are definitely not alone. You're sharing some of the same feelings as people like Sheryl Sandberg, former COO of Facebook Meta, even Michelle Obama, former First Lady, and Howard Schultz, former CEO of Starbucks. All of these people have struggled with self-doubt. And look at how successful they are. So push through, use some of these steps. I hope you have a wonderful 2 weeks, and I'll talk to you next time.